you ask me how it was still possible that they ended up in that exact same space, even with, you know, changes and with the lack of the observers and all that stuff, could not tell you. Because quite frankly, right now, I don't think the show has made it clear enough. But that's also their choice.
Right.
It's okay.
I don't know if it matters.
At the end of the day, I would much rather leave the show and feel like, okay, I mean, I think you and I might have talked about this. My thing was, I went into that series finale thinking, because, you know, they've changed the way the show operates year by year. The finales have always changed the way you look at the previous season, the series as a whole, etc., etc. And my concern sounds a little bit too grave, but my hesitation going into the series finale was, oh please let this not change the way I feel about the entire series.
Right.
Because you know, again with Lost, some people do not look at Lost the same way because they hated the finale.
Yeah.
And
I get that.
I'm not saying, and there are very few shows that there's literally
I know,
one
I was
show,
going to say, like, I don't want to say...
literally one show that I feel that the finale actually ruined the rest of the series.
Right.
But I was just like, okay, I've actually had a really good history with liking the ends of my mythology shows. Like, I like the end of Lost. I like the end of X-Files, which still gets me yelled at. And I'm like, whatever.
Well, I'm not saying I didn't like the end. I just, like, when I just don't want to think they reset so many things that they still weren't able to... That some of that what we saw for 5 years didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, because it doesn't change the way that I look back on those seasons, because everything was still obviously relevant because they needed to do everything to reset things anyway. But I don't want to believe that when they reset things, it drastically changed their personal course.
That being said, even still, at most, all that was actually canon for what happened from what we saw with season 4.
Right.
Which is still, if you think about it, only having one season actually coming out the way that it, in their, at most of their history, actually being what it was, is kind of strange to think about. Oh god, I just ruined the show for her.
No, it doesn't, but that doesn't bother me, because, like, it doesn't, it doesn't change.
It's not a bad thing.
It doesn't change how I think of, I mean, I also, like, I always looked at this show more on the character and emotional level anyway, because of the science stuff, and I've said this before, just, I don't get it. Like, I just don't. There are a lot of, like, I would go back and rewatch episodes because there were little things that I felt like didn't make sense, and not necessarily from a writing perspective, just because I don't get the science of things. And so, that doesn't, you know, it doesn't change. I mean, I'd have to do a rewatch to know for sure, but, like, I don't feel like I would think differently about characters based on that stuff.
No, yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, I'm really, quite frankly, really happy with the character moments we got in the finale.
Yes.
Like,
I'm sorry, but that very last moment with the tulip card was perfect.
Oh, God.
Like, that, I was just like, way to kill me, thanks, Joel.
I know. I was watching that, and I realized, obviously, before it happened that was happening.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, let's see if I can actually make it without crying. I mean, I hadn't made it without crying after that point, let's be honest, it's me. But I was like, let's see if I could, you know, I wasn't, this sounds terrible, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but I wasn't, like, sobbing when Peter and Olivia and Etta were on the field. I was fine. I was like, okay, because you knew that was coming.
That you would be sobbing, because first of all, I mean, you can cry for happy reasons too, but, like, I feel like the other stuff was more.
Right, but so when they got in, and he's on, and he opens up the thing, and I'm just like, with Chris Tilton and that music, and then I'm just like, son of a bitch. I'm like, you got me.
Right.
I know, and it's like, I had made a joke with a friend, and I'm like, okay, you got to keep track as to when you first cry in the first 2 hours.
That's a good game, I think, for a lot of finales.
And I totally lost. Like, I thought she would be there with me.
Wait, when was it? Because now I have to think about when mine was, but...
I actually...
Wait, are you counting the first episode? The first hour? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was like, we have to keep track as to who's going to cry first, because I'm like, I wasn't sure who it would be. And so, I started crying during the first episode when Walter tried to tell Peter about what's going on. It's like a 30-ish minute mark. Yeah, I was like, oh, there's so much subtext, and I just want to hug. I just want to hug something. Someone give me a hug. And then basically every scene with John Noble from the second hour killed me. Like, you are my favorite thing. I just can't.